ICE is out of control. And if you thought they were bad now, wait till you hear about the purge of ICE to be replaced with these top ICE leaders, to be replaced with folks from Customs and Border Patrol. Now, guys, it's hard to know when you watch videos, if you're on the ground and you see someone brutally attacking a American citizen or someone who is not a citizen, if you see them literally tear gassing children at a Halloween parade and throwing elderly people down and breaking their ribs, it's hard to know. They're wearing masks and maybe camouflage. Are they CPB, which is Customs and Border Patrol, or are they ICE? And at this point, it's all going to blend together. The bottom line is Donald Trump's team is putting in the most brutal people to be out there in communities to wrestle up and deport families, moms, to arrest and harass children. This is happening in our country now. It is utterly out of control. Now, I'm going to start with first what happened over the weekend at a Halloween parade and why that's important. Because, as mentioned, yesterday, there was a hearing in federal court. Judge Sarah Ellis hauled a guy named Greg Bovino, a high-up official in Customs and Border Patrol, before her to answer to her. And she handled the hearing extremely well. Now, when I mentioned this to you on Monday, I suggested it be next Tuesday. It was actually yesterday, this Tuesday. So let's get into this. First, let me show you some still photos, and then I'm going to prepare you for the video. This was what you see here. Let me just step out of the way again for you. What you see here is some kind of raid. It may have been an ICE raid. It may have been Customs and Border Patrol, and it may have been both. And you see folks in camouflage throwing people to the ground. You can see parents. You see Halloween decor on the lawn. And what you to also see is in that same area, they sprayed tear gas. Now, I know that they're starting to call it pepper spray or pepper gas spray. It doesn't matter if they call it pepper spray. It's tear gas. It induces tears. Think about extremely hot pepper. Have you ever gotten a little piece of hot pepper in your eye when you're cooking? It is brutal. That's what we are talking about. And that is why you see people often at protests wearing goggles and masks, because the pain, and you would be having to sit on the ground in excruciating pain. I think sometimes the only cure for this, I've seen people years ago pour milk in their eyes. I'm not sure how you recover from that. Certainly not immediately. It would take many minutes, if not hours. So what I want to now share with you, though, is a video of what those raids look like. My understanding is the tear gas may have happened before the parade in that area, and then during the parade period, these ICE and CPB officials attacking folks. Now, keep in mind, it's not going to be Halloween, as you know, until this Friday, but a lot of communities, as you probably also know, have stretched out Halloween and made daytime events for kids. It makes it safer. It's not as cold out. It's easier on parents when there are many different choices. So let me share with you this horrific video. 1 second. And what I'm sharing with you is, hold on, I hope I have, here we go. This is going to be on YouTube. And this was from The Independent, and it was a video shared. You'll see the man's name by a local person who experienced this. Let me play it.
What? Hey, why is he driving the car? Put people up.
7 years old. Be easy
Do
on
not
this.
resist. Say that.
7 years old. Dude, what is he doing? He's suffocating. Dude, I'm what are you doing? Michael, get out of my neighborhood!
Are you a citizen?
So you get a feel for that, right? What might not have been clear is that the man who was arrested there, and I'm going to share this with you also, and you're seeing a lot of this, more details about this, not in US news, and we're going to talk about that. It's not being emphasized as much that I could find in our media, although I wasn't glued to a TV. I had a work event yesterday, so I'm not sure. Let me share this screen with you now too about that event. So from the event I just shared with you, a US citizen who was 67 years old had his ribs broken by the Border Patrol agents. He was dragged out of his car because he was driving home on that street that they had blocked off. This is the same place. This is over the weekend. This was Saturday. It's Chicago's Old Irving Place neighborhood. And federal agents disrupted a children's Halloween parade. And it's kind of unbelievable, right? But it is believable. This is happening here. And remember, I think you need to remember that John Roberts suggested that these stops where they were profiling people would be perfectly fine. Remember John Roberts on this? Because you could simply, the federal agents, after profiling someone, would just stop them, ask them a few questions, and let them go on their way, right? This is what John Roberts says. And let me just quote him. This is I'm sorry. Oh, I just said John Roberts. Justice Brett Kavanaugh, the Roberts Court, but it is the Kavanaugh stop. So let me quote Brett Kavanaugh. After these, he has no trouble. He doesn't find it unconstitutional for federal agents to take a look at you and decide by the color of your skin or the language you're speaking, or they don't like the cut of your jib, that they're going to stop you. And it says about the people who are stopped, he's claiming this does not violate their or our constitutional rights. And I'm quoting Kavanaugh. And those individuals may promptly go free after making clear to the immigration officers that they are U.S. citizens or otherwise legally in the United States. Let me tell you what happened to this man. According to a running club who reported this out, this is from that same independent article from the UK. The man, who is a U.S. citizen, was returning from a team run when agents pulled him out of his vehicle, tackled him to the ground, and kneeled on top of him, allegedly breaking 6 ribs and causing internal bleeding. Brett Kavanaugh. That is the Kavanaugh stop. This is happening right now in America. Now, the good news is it's not being entirely ignored on the news. ABC News featured this and you can see it on their website on Sunday, but it's not getting enough attention. This should be at the heart of what we are talking about. Many months ago, when they opened up the first what I call concentration camp, the one that they had placed in the Florida Everglades, and people were sarcastically, with gallows humor, calling it what was it, alligator Auschwitz. It's a terrible place, and eventually that got shut down, is my understanding. But the people who were there, what I had heard last I checked into this, were unaccounted for. The minute that happened, followed by the president's budget passing, even if it's not yet funded, which included huge extra amounts of money for immigration enforcement and specifically for ICE, right? I mean, the numbers that Trump got, this was passed in, I believe, was that in August? I'm not exactly sure. I am remembering that I think it was around then. It increased substantially. I mean, the ICE budget alone, this is just the U.S. Immigrations and Customs Enforcement budget under the bill that already passed, would be $75 billion over 4 years, right? And that is just the ICE portion of the budget. The entire budget for all of immigration enforcement is $170 billion. That was what the plan was for, $170 billion across 4 years. So when you look at that, it's $37 billion for all immigration enforcement. And as I started the show out saying, who knows what's ICE? Who knows what's Customs and Border Patrol? That money is going to hire people who will terrorize us. And it is frightening, and it's happening now, and it absolutely needs to stop. Now, some good news, I don't know if I call it good news, but some check on the system was yesterday's federal court hearing before Judge Ellis, where this man, Greg Bovino, had to appear. And the thing about Bovino is he acts like and he quacks like a Nazi. And if someone acts like a Nazi and quacks like a Nazi, what are you supposed to call them, my friends? And what I want to show you is an actual photo of this guy that he put up on his social media. And I want to show you this. This was, I'm going to share this with you. Okay. This is how he addresses. He put a black and white photo of himself looking like this up on his social media. Let me share the screen with you. There it is. Who wore it better? The actual Nazis or the guy who had to appear before Judge Ellis? Look at him there. This is how he's posing. So the deal is, I did ask, is this real? You can see on my True Social. And in response, oops, I'm not doing a good job with this. I said, is this real? And someone says, Eric Columbus says, seems to be per Google image search. I traced it back to this guy's Instagram from October 8th. And this appears to be him. That's when he, crowdsourced it. That is what he wore to visit the CNN bureau in Chicago this month. Guys, what the fuck? If that doesn't shout out, I'm a Nazi, I don't know what does. And this guy, thank God, had to appear. And maybe I shouldn't say thank God. Thank justice had to appear before Judge Sarah Ellis yesterday. So let me give you a bit of an update on what happened there. I think I've read transcripts of it, but I want to share with you some news reporting out of Chicago, what their comments were, and then we'll talk after I share this. Okie dokie, guys. Great. Here we go. And let's play. This is CBS News Chicago from yesterday.
It was, Marie. This was possibly the biggest change that Judge Ellis could issue. Greg Bovino, Commander Gregory Bovino, now asked to report to the judge to report in person every single day at 6 p.m. between now and November 5th. That's the next court date. She wants him to tell her all about what he and his agents are doing on a daily basis.
Hey guys.
Protesters lined the gates guarding federal court as Commander Gregory Bovino arrived for his court-ordered testimony. He took the stand wearing his green Customs and Border Protection uniform, swore to tell the truth. Judge Sarah Ellis went through her temporary restraining order line by line, pointing out that maybe, quote, the TRO just isn't clear.
Let her go! Let her go!
She referenced two incidents in the last week where plaintiffs allege Bovino and his agents used unnecessary force. The first in Little Village last week, where video appears to show Bovino pulling out at least one canister of tear gas and tossing it into a crowd. Bovino claimed he had been hit in the head with something thrown by someone in the crowd. The judge asked him if he wears a body-worn camera, which would have caught that projectile. He says he isn't currently wearing one. Judge Ellis mentioned DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. Bovino replied, quote, I talk to her from time to time, yeah. Ellis added, I suspect that if you ask for one, a body-worn camera, you could probably get one. Later adding, if someone's throwing a rock at your head, the camera's going to catch it. Ellis also asked about this incident in Old Irving Park, which also involved the use of tear gas as kids were getting ready for a Halloween parade, adding, these kids, their sense of safety was shattered on Saturday, Ellis said, and it's going to take a long time for that to come back.
Now, Commander Gregory Bovino said he couldn't comment specifically on the cases mentioned in court today without knowing more, though he did agree to do a few other things. Judge Ellis asking for a list of people arrested not for immigration purposes, for purpose of their own immigration status, but for people who were arrested during these operations that might be U.S. citizens. And she also wants to see the associated use of force reports and the body-worn camera. She wants that all by the end of the week, Marie.
A lot of deadlines to meet, and we'll see if he does it by Friday. Sabrina, thank you.
Okay, so a key takeaway here. Right. A key takeaway here. There was a lot to take in, but I just want to recap. Number one, this judge isn't taking bullshit. She was polite. She didn't say to Bovino, you're full of shit. You could have been wearing a body-worn camera. I don't believe a rock hit you. She said, you can get one. So, yeah. Second takeaway, he will be showing up every day at 6 p.m. That was negotiated. I think she'd originally said 4 or 4:30. He said 6, which I think is understandable. And she said, fine. So tonight at 6 p.m., Thursday at 6 p.m. and Friday. He asked on the weekends and she said, no, we're not open on the weekends, which concerns me about what weekends will look like. But he's going to have to report to the judge every single day. So if he tries to say incredible stuff like, well, I didn't know that and I don't know, she'll say, well, I'd like you to tell me by 6 tomorrow. The second thing is she's probably going to ask about his camera. Or the next thing is, and then finally, she did address what is, to me, the greatest tragedy of the Trump era, which is the physical, sexual, and psychological abuse of children exists. And not only they don't care, but they are covering it up. And this is everything from covering up the Epstein files. so that the most powerful men, and maybe women, because of course there's Ghislaine Maxwell, but mainly we're talking about extremely wealthy men, that they don't feel uncomfortable or face prosecution. That's being covered up. That's a fact. We also have what you saw, which is it's not just tear gassing before a parade, it's children watching their parents being ripped away and disappeared. And all of us, anyone, even if that is not happening to a child, what is utterly, utterly heartbreaking, my friends, is how this seeps into the psychology of children. Before I went to sleep last night, when I was going through the news, I came upon something that utterly broke my heart. And here it was from Carl Quintanilla on Blue Sky. And he, I think that he used to be, he's a former reporter. I'm not sure if he's still reporting. At any rate, he shared an article, and I'm going to quote this for you. This is actually, let me just show this to you while I read it. Some people like to see and not just hear, and I want to respect that, and maybe it helps to do both. Andrea Soria, whose daughter plays at Luna y Cielo, overheard her 6-year-old whisper to her dolls, "We have to be good or ICE will get us." I have no words for you. I don't think I can even get through this sentence right now. We have to be good or ICE will get us. That's what she's telling her dolls. You want this? Are you going to do anything to stop this? We need to draw this to the attention of every elected official. This must stop. We cannot fund these fascists. Now, what's happening over in the House of Representatives that Mike Johnson has shut down because he doesn't care and wants to cover up child abuse? This is the Epstein files. Let's see what he had to say when he was asked. Let me play this for you.
What's your reaction to yesterday's purge of senior ICE officials from field offices around the country? Are you worried that that's going to result in less experienced leaders?
Okay, what you might not have been able to hear is they're asking him about, so this was Tuesday, so I guess they were asking about Monday's purge of ICE officials. Okay, so let me just play that so you can hear it better.
What's your reaction to yesterday's purge of senior ICE officials from field offices around the country? Are you worried that that's going to result in less experienced leadership at ICE? And again, when is it time for Congress to do something?
I don't know any of the details of that yet. I just heard about that literally. I was walking in, so I'm not going to comment on it until I find out the details. I know some of these things get misportrayed. Yeah, back row. Yeah.
I don't know any of the details of that. He's just going to say that sometimes these things get misportrayed. What does that even mean? Now, one more thing on ICE before I kind of give a little more details about this sort of takeover of ICE by the more brutal people at Customs and Border Patrol. Another reality is when you have imbued someone with extreme power to destroy someone's life, they can kind of get away with anything. Let me share this with you. And sort of trigger warning, this involves sexual harassment.
Northern California woman who recently filed a civil lawsuit accusing an ICE contractor of sexual harassment has now been deported.
And now her attorneys are questioning the timing. KCRA 3's Andrea Flores is here with what we've learned.
Tonight, her lawyers are telling us her civil case will move forward, and they're hoping to bring her back to the United States. Sylvia Reina Mendoza is a mother of 8 who has lived in the U.S. for nearly 40 years. We spoke with 2 of her children last week after she filed a civil lawsuit in Sacramento County. Reina Mendoza was in the country illegally. Her status required her to be monitored by BI Incorporated, which contracts with ICE. Now, according to the lawsuit, her specialist, Luis Ruiz, sent her sexually explicit text messages and videos. Now, the lawsuit says when she reported that behavior to a supervisor, no action was taken. Our story aired on Thursday night, and her lawyer says she was deported by Friday morning.
It's obviously very, very suspicious because all along the defendants that we are suing have been working very hard to cover up the sexual harassment. We're still investigating this. We want all the facts to come out, and we want the individuals who have harmed her to be brought to justice.
Her immigration attorneys believe she was illegally deported, claiming she had an emergency stay on her case. We did reach out to federal immigration officials, and we have not yet heard back. Meantime, the company, BI Incorporated, says it takes all allegations of sexual harassment very seriously and will thoroughly investigate all of those complaints.
I guess people may be wondering, though, how this affects the case. Now that she's been deported, what does that mean for the lawsuit?
Yeah, that's a great question. Of course, the attorneys are vowing that this case will continue, even if she has to be part of these.
Oh, my God. Okay. So you see how this shakes down. And that's our tax dollars paying for that. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about the fact that you go to work, or now you're retired and you're getting Social Security? You worked, and I'm working, and out of my paycheck, my money goes directly to the federal government to pay for this. Now, I'm going to continue to pay my taxes. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is this must stop. I don't think the vast majority of Americans want this to happen, and it will get worse before it gets worse. That's a fact. Now, I'm going to tell you some good news in a second, but let me finish out this ICE leadership being replaced. Okay, so basically, what's happening here, and this was reported out yesterday, that the Trump administration is taking half of the top leadership at ICE across the entire country and replacing them, reassigning them. And this is obviously leaked out. So we still have some really good reporters in this country, thank God. And so this was a current official who reported this. And I'm citing an AP story that's written by Rebecca Santana and Elliot Spagat. Okay, so this official was not authorized to speak and is an anonymous leak. And he said 12 ICE field office directors. So there's like a total of 24. These field office directors, 12 of them, right? This is like, if you think about stores, like the managers, regional managers, we're talking about 12 of these kind of regional managers of these ICE offices have been reassigned. And what's happening is they're being replaced or with existing or retired CPB staff, so Customs and Border Protection. I call it patrol, but it's Customs and Border Protection staff. And so let me say this differently. Yeah, and then I guess half of the 6 are being replaced, and then I guess another half are being replaced by ICE officers. And it's not entirely clear why this is happening, other than this idea that the Trump administration thinks that CPB Well, let me just read this. AP says the reason for the personnel changes wasn't immediately clear, but they indicate a greater integration of Border Patrol agents in ICE at a time when Customs and Border Protection has been accused of using heavy-handed tactics in its immigration enforcement. So there's 25 field offices across the country, and the reassignments affect 12. So it's close to 50%. So, you know, Elizabeth Warren has often said personnel is policy. She's probably not the only one, but that reflects who you want to have head certain agencies. And in this case, this is a deliberate plan to throw people out, to change the culture. So this is why it is so critical that Judge Sarah Ellis is requiring Greg Bovino to show up, because we've got a problem here. If you thought ICE was bad, wait to see what they will do. So thank justice that she is doing this. Now, some other good news on this front of not great news is accountability. So let me talk about the first bit of accountability. You know, all those law firms, specifically Sullivan and Cromwell, who caved to Donald Trump and settled cases when there really weren't cases to be settled. Like, you know, Donald Trump, let me just back up. When Donald Trump was reelected at the beginning of this term, he was claiming that law firms had done him wrong by somehow representing people that were his enemies. I'm simplifying this. And so some of them preemptively, some of them got threatened, and some of them preemptively bowed down or bent down to him and said, we're going to settle with you by giving you the government, our labor and our time and our resources, because it can also be physical paper and computers. It all goes into, so we'll give you we'll give you our resources up in millions of dollars to make up for this. And the law firms were trying to say, oh, it's not a big deal. We work on pro bono cases anyway. Pro bono publica means, when you work for free for the public. But those cases, when it comes to Donald Trump's administration, might not be your ordinary types of pro bono cases, like representing, when I worked on pro bono, like you represent, this is an example, not what I did, but you could represent a soup kitchen, you could represent an immigration organization or things like that. That's not what is going on here. So there is a comeuppance. This is the excitement. So let me read this to you. After law firms deal with Trump, the DC bar warns of ethical jeopardy. The bar group's ethics committee says law firms that made a deal or make a deal with the government may need to get waivers from clients with opposing interests. This was penned by Charlie Savage. And it says, months after law firms made deals with President Trump to ward off punitive executive orders, right? The punishment was going to be, I don't even remember what the executive orders were, but they should have, standing up to the bully was what they should have done. So months after this, the ethics committee of the District of Columbia Bar is warning that such arrangements may require these law firms to drop or obtain waivers from all clients who have interests at odds with the government, which could be many business clients, right? You represent a business client who might be on the other side of a lawsuit or is trying to negotiate something and change a policy. So this was an opinion issued by the committee, the DC Bar, and it could bring new scrutiny to several prominent law firms that chose to strike deals with Mr. Trump instead of challenging his executive orders targeting them. And so this is, I'm going to show you, we can see these were, there were some executive orders. A judge actually struck down an order targeting a law firm, but some of the law firms wanted to bend the knee and curry favor with the administration to make money. And now their clients are going to have to sign waivers, or maybe the judge, if this gets challenged, they may have to drop them. Now, of course, This is a little bit of a comeuppance, but probably not all that much, in that clients who want to stay with these firms will stay with them. However, if you think about this, sometimes a law firm has a long-term relationship with a business because there's a certain partner at the law firm, and there might be a senior executive at the corporation that they've worked with for a while. And it's hard to break off those relationships. This may give a client an opportunity to say, you know what, we're going to go to a different law firm. It certainly will give other law firms the opportunity to step in. So we love to see that. Another big piece of really good news is this. Yesterday, and this is huge, and I might need to unpack it if you haven't heard about this. I don't know if you can see that, but yesterday, a federal judge said that a U.S. attorney who is serving in the Central District of California, a judge declared that he had been in this role unlawfully and declared him disqualified. This guy is named Bill Asili. Now, a couple things to unpack for you. California has 4 federal districts, so you're going to have 4 U.S. attorneys there in charge of those offices. Some states, like Massachusetts, for example, only has 1 federal district. They have more than 1 courthouse and office, but there's only 1 federal district there, I believe, because that coincides with the courts. That would make sense. And so there's 1 U.S. attorney for Massachusetts. That's my how I understand it. Now, the deal here is that normally speaking, you need the Senate to provide advice and consent before the appointment of certain high-level positions, and that includes the U.S. attorney's positions. And Donald Trump has been trying to bypass that, and he's been slapped back. One other example you might remember was Alina Habba. And the way he's been trying to end run that is by having people like this guy, Bill Asili, to be first put in as like an assistant. Let me just put this back up here. To first be put in as an assistant, and then somehow step up to the acting role. And it's not kosher to do it that way. And this has to do with the how vacancies are filled. And I'm kind of simplifying it because the facts here, the details of what they did don't matter so much, but that they thought they had found a way to end run the process. And the judge said no. Now, who cares about this guy? I mean, I don't know anything specific that he's doing. I care about the process. But why it's important to us, I think you might know where this is going. Lindsay Halligan, Donald Trump also used the same process to put her in place to become the U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. Okay. Now, and this is where Allison Gill makes a really good point here. She said, this is, meaning this guy, Bill Asili, is the 3rd U.S. attorney found to be unlawfully appointed. The other 2 are Sigal Chattah and Alina Habba. So the deal, though, is, let me remove this. Those other U.S. attorneys, when they have had grand juries file indictments, have had other folks sign on to those indictments. That's what you will see. But with Lindsay Halligan, the indictments that she sued, the grand jury, passes this true bill. If you see an indictment, you'll see the grand jury it's been stamped there, and then usually signed by the foreman of the grand jury, whose name is redacted. And then you see the assistant U.S. attorneys, the AUSAs, usually sign that document along with, maybe sometimes along with the U.S. attorney. In the case of Lindsay Halligan, her indictments, the indictments of James Comey, as well as Letitia James. Those indictments did not have anyone else's signature on them. So as Allison says, the indictments stand because they were signed by other prosecutors, but not true for Lindsay Halligan. So because other prosecutors did not sign the indictments, the argument, and this is the argument that I think Comey is making, I think Letitia James is also making, that Halligan did not have the authority, and so that these indictments have to be dismissed. So that could be really good news. We need to stay tuned on that front. Now, before I get to Crazy Town, I need to say hello in the name of physical health, relational health, intellectual health, spiritual health, and mental health, what we strive for, PRISM. The thing that gives me the most mental health, I think, are dogs. I mean, they cheer me up so much. I want to share my oldest child, Emily, has a new dog, a rescue dog. And look, there is Emily and there is Bagel. And Emily shared this photo with me on Monday when Bagel and Emily were watching this very show. But the thing is, as you can understand, dogs, they don't necessarily like law and politics. So at some point, Bagel tapped out and fell asleep. But when I cannot get my grand dog fixes, I walk down. Well, when I walk to work, look what I walk by. I got to back out of this. This is a dog park at the corner where I live. And you can see this fabulous dog standing on the picnic table, smiling at me, and then his friend or her friend down in the bottom of the frame on our left. I guess that would be stage right, so to speak. And it just gave me so much joy. So if I'm going to mention dogs who are, especially Bagel, who can be a temporary show mascot, you know that I have to also, of course, talk about our dear friend, Tank the tortoise, who is always with us, helping us think about health and health issues. Okay, guys, it is now time for Crazy Town. It is. Okay. So to set up this Crazy Town, it is a wonder of a thing when People magazine is the news outlet that is willing to say out loud and push on what all of us are thinking. And so let me set this up and let me share this People magazine article here. So People magazine yesterday said, headline, Donald Trump confuses dementia screening for, quote, very hard, unquote, IQ tests as he brags about the results. The president predicted that Democratic reps Jasmine Crockett and Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez could not perform as well as he did in a cognitive exam. Of course, you know, these are racist dog whistles. But just close that ad. President Donald Trump seemed to refer to a dementia assessment when telling reporters about his perfect score on an IQ test he said he'd undergone at Walter Reed Medical Center. Trump has previously bragged about his performance on the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, a dementia screening administered by clinicians that is not intended to test intelligence. And he literally said, those are very hard. They're really aptitude tests, I guess, in a certain way, but they're cognitive tests. Let AOC go against Trump. And let's see what the Montreal Cognitive Assessment actually looks like. I think you probably know. Let's share the screen. Okie doke. So this is the example of the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, MoCA. And you can see the first test is visuospatial. And you see there's a pre-existing line, dotted line. It's 1A. So the next thing you're at is 2. So then you would draw a line 2B, 3C, 4D, 5E, right? The next thing you have to do is copy that bed, a drawing of it. Now you see a blank space that says draw a clock and make it 5 past 10. This is a very specific test because what I've read is people who have dementia, when they're drawing a clock, well, people who don't, if you were drawing a clock, maybe you draw a circle and maybe you would put 12 at the top, right? And you would put 6 at the bottom, and 3 to the right and 9. And then you would maybe fit the other numbers in. Apparently people with dementia just like kind of start crowding all the numbers and maybe don't get to the other side. The next part of the test that he thinks is an IQ test is to identify these animals. I mean, we have our friendly duck on the right. Can you name the others? And so this is what the test is. And this is the English Montreal Cognitive Assessment. This is the version in English. He wasn't given a version in Spanish or French. This is what his test was. Another example, if you look, read a list of letters. The subject must tap with his hand at each letter. And you get no points if you have more than 2 errors. Okay. I don't really know what I can say to you. This should be headline fucking news. We have someone who everybody knows is fully incapacitated. He doesn't have the ability to understand, even though he's been told many times that this is a test for dementia. We also know he just underwent some kind of MRI. We don't know what part of his body was screened. The guy isn't going to change. He gets worse. And the problem isn't so much him. I mean, he is a big problem. The problem is everyone propping him up. And they shouldn't be allowed to get around it. What is our press doing? When People Magazine can do this, I am encouraged. I don't know what their subscriber base is, but People Magazine to me is kind of like The View. It speaks to a population that might not want to be inundated with depressing, heavy news, unlike me. And they come across this. They can't hide from it anymore. Okay, this is part of Crazy Town. Now, here is Exhibit A. This was Donald Trump when he was addressing the troops. I believe this was in Japan, or maybe this one is in Korea. We will see. I have no idea because he's been moving from country to country right now in Asia. I have no idea what he's talking about. I mean, I sort of do. We'll talk after the break.
Question. Hydraulic for your elevators or magnets? You know, the new thing is magnets. So instead of using hydraulic, that you can be hit by lightning and it's fine. You take a little glass of water and you drop it on magnets. I don't know what's going to happen. So, you know, the elevator.
Okay. Let's look at that last part. You take a drop of water and you put it on magnets. I don't know what's going to happen. Friends, magnets do not lose their magnetism when water is dropped on them. You can Google it if you want to. That doesn't happen. What is he talking about? He is trying to blame the fact that aircraft carriers, that airplanes keep falling into the ocean And he's claiming that the reason why is that they no longer use steam-powered catapults, and therefore this new methodology, which isn't so new, that use magnets is somehow the reason for this. I don't know what to tell you, but this has been explained to him apparently before, and just like everything else, he either ignores or his brain doesn't have the capacity to understand what's going on. Shall I remind you that this man has a nuclear code? Shall I remind you that this man has now created a new business in the prediction markets where he will be able to make money off predicting things that he has actually put in place? What are we doing? What are we doing? I don't know, guys, but I look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning. I'll have an update from Sarah Ellis's courtroom. And I want to say thank you, as always, to the amazing mods and to all of the prison mates who make this happen. I'm going to have an update soon on the chat area of YouTube about a special event, a special Zoom for members only. More on that soon. Anyway, have a beautiful, beautiful Wednesday, and I'll see you first thing in the morning.
Hello, prison mates. It's the Jen Taub Show, where welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There was hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Jen Taub Show.